Hi everybody, welcome back once again to the Eastfield Gunroom YouTube channel. Before we get into today's review, which is yet another first for the channel, we've got some really exciting news. Fanfare please. That's right, we have just hit the milestone of 5,000 subscribers to the channel. So big thanks to you all from myself and videographer Max for supporting the channel, liking, subscribing, engaging with us, sending emails. We do support it. So let's keep going, let's keep building the channel from today. So on to today's review, and we have got another first. We are going to look at the mighty Kemen. Now, Kemen is a Spanish manufacturer from the Basque region of Spain. You may remember we've previously looked at AOA and we've looked at Lamba, same kind of region. Now, Kemen is a fairly new manufacturer also. It was formed in 1990. You remember a few weeks ago we looked at Caesar Guarini, which is again quite a recent company also. That was back in 2000. And in the UK, we kind of had them from about 1995 onwards. Now, at the time, there was a lot of competition based on the same kind of design. We've looked at Gamba before. Obviously, we've looked at Perazzi. And these, understandably, it got the nickname of being a Spanish Perazzi because it is essentially a copy of a Perazzi made in Spain. So today we're going to look at a KM4. Now, a little bit of background to Kemen. Like I said, fairly recent company, 1990. Don't produce tons of guns, 200-300 a year, maybe more, not entirely sure. They recently had a bit of a resurgence here in the UK due to a reintroduction, which we'll talk about a bit later on. But let's go back to sort of the mid-1990s, 96, 97. Very, very popular here in the UK. So the main model was the KM4. They did a KM4 Sport, they did a KM4 Trap. A lot of big shooters have shot these in the past, the likes of George Digweed, Richard Foles, Kevin Gill on the trap scene. And there was a lot of input introduction-wise when the Kemen first came to the UK from Tony Kennedy. So if you go back to like the late 90s, very, very popular, a lot of people shooting them. And for good reason, really. They took a gun that was incredibly popular, which was the Perazzi MX8, which is a boss design with a dropout trigger, and they copied it. And a few little changes, but we're going to have a look at them all today. So it's instantly recognizable because it's very similar looking to a Perazzi. We've got this low profile boss action. It's black, which of course the traditional MX8 back in the 1960s was and is still manufactured today. And we've got a very kind of sleek, subtle looking, this is a sporting gun. This is a 32-inch model, but it's not in your face. I've said it before, competition guns typically are quite plain, DT10, DT11. That's not to say that Kemen can't produce some fantastic versions of this, some custom versions, some highly engraved versions, because I know they can, and they have done in the past. I've seen several. But the kind of bread and butter gun that put them on the map here in the UK was this KM4 platform in the standard black competition spec. As I was saying, very sleek, very understated. We've got a nicely finished black action with Kemen KM4 in gold, which is nicely done, obviously, by hand. We've got no frills on the barrels. We've got no gold bits or anything like that. It is, like I said, designed as an out-and-out competition gun. We turn it over, nothing on the bottom. We've got the detachable trigger system, which again kind of mimics the MX8. And onto the other side, we've just got Kemen on the barrels here, but nothing on the action. Moving over to the top, very, very minimal engraving. Looks like a wheel off a penny farthing. Nothing else other than that. We've got a little bit going on the selector. Interesting point, these guns are majority non-selective actions. There was an option for a selective trigger, which interestingly enough was actually on the trigger, which we'll touch on shortly. So nothing on the back strap other than we've got S there in gold. Obviously it's a manual safety because it's designed as a competition gun. And then if we open it up, we all recognise that design with the bifurcated lumps. Now, someone was saying to me that although these were considered to be the Spanish Perazzi, if you like, that they did actually use quite different types of metal in the manufacturing process. So, barrels, starting on the very bottom, we've got made in Spain engraved on there. We've got the fact that it's a Kemen, the fact that it's a 12 gauge 70mm chamber. I do believe they do some game models, which of course will be 3-inch, but from a competition point of view, it was 2 3/4 inch chambers exclusively. The serial number. I've also got some nice polishing, nicely finished off. 18.7 bore. Again, with Kemen being kind of a low-scale manufacturer, you could probably have an 18.6 and 18.5, depending on exactly what you wanted to use the gun for. So we've got it slightly overboard. So this one is a 32-inch gun. The rib is tapered from 7 to 11mm, ventilated with a centre bead and ventilated barrels. Now with a white foresight bead, all original, Now, traditionally, these were at the time this gun was acquired here in the UK through Kelbrook, who used to be the importers from Kelbrook Guns in Lancashire. They were all factory Briley choked. This is Briley multi-choked. So we talk a lot about Teague on this channel because it's a UK manufacturer of precision chokes, etc. Briley is kind of like the American version. They will take a gun, they will take the bore sizes, they will look at what is going to be best suited to that gun. And they have different series in Briley, like Series 1, Series 2, and they will manufacture a thin wall set of choke tubes specifically for your gun. So the gun is proofed at 1200 bar, so it's magnum proofed. However, it's not steel shot proof because when this gun was manufactured back in the early 2000s, it wasn't really a necessity then. You could use it with standard performance steel, but should you want to have it converted to high performance, then that is possible. Just a question sending it to the proof house, either in Birmingham or London here in the UK, and they will be able to offer you the facility of having it HB steel shot proofed. In terms of the actual cosmetics of the barrels, you know, this is a high quality gun. We've got some very deep luster, high quality bluing, and just a little nice touch. We've got Kemen in gold just on the right hand side of the barrel, just near the breech on the lumps. As obviously I'm a bit of an anorak when it comes to shotguns, I wanted to weigh the barrels and see what they were. My preference in 32-inch tends to be somewhere between kind of 1550 and 1570 gram barrels. These are 1553, so absolutely smack on in terms of the kind of specification that I would have picked if I'd have been buying a Kemen back in 2000. Just going back to the action, we've got the familiar H-block design, which we all know as that wears, we can replace that with an oversized H-block to put the life back into the gun. And interestingly enough, we've got some very strong side walls to the action, which incidentally, Kemen is actually Spanish for strength. So I can all hear you shouting, what does it weigh? Well, it weighs 8 pounds 3 ounces. And in terms of the balance, it's maybe a slight bit barrel heavy. But again, if we go back to when this gun was first supplied, it was actually spec'd like this. So the customer obviously wanted a slight bit of tip in the barrels, if you like. And again, this goes down to the fact that we've got a lot of modern guns with barrel weights and stock weighting systems, because the idea behind it is so you can tailor make it and get it exactly where you want it. So 8 pounds 3 ounces, 1553 gram barrels. So moving on to the woodwork, we have got, I'll start with the dimension because I don't normally do that. We have got 3642. So again, it just shows that this gun was specifically built this way for somebody. It was ordered like that. So it's almost a parallel comb. Hope you can see that on the camera. And what that does is it means that with so little drop between the drop at comb and the drop at heel, there's much less margin for error in terms of a consistent gun mount point of view. Back end, we've got a kick ease recoil pad. I couldn't say that was original or not, whether it's been fitted aftermarket, I don't know. We've got quite a nice thickness in terms of the comb, but it's not overly thick like you've got some of the older trap guns. The wood itself is typical of what you'll see on most Kemen KM4s. It's kind of reasonably well figured European walnut. Obviously, what you've got to remember with a competition gun, it's more about the strength and sometimes how it looks, what the aesthetics of it are, particularly with a dropout competition gun like this has. Remember, it's similar to the MX8 and it's got a dropout trigger, which we'll look at in a few minutes' time. Very nicely fine checkering. We have got no palm swell. Again, you can probably get one of these with the palm swell depending on what you want. Even today, I would imagine you go to Kemen and say, I want this, 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 and this, and they will build it for you, no problem whatsoever. Nice pistol grip, quite deep in the pistol grip, feels nice in the hands. And then we move on to the fore end. It's very, very slim. You know, a lot of guns of this period, a lot of the guns I've seen, particularly KM4s, have had Schnabel fore ends or beaver tail fore ends, because like I said before, with them being non-selective, a lot of them are more kind of trappy actions. A lot of them were bored for trap with tighter barrels, 18.4, 18.5. But this is a very, very slim design. We've literally got one little shield in terms of engraving on the fore end iron, which could mean anything. And that is pretty much it in terms of the fore end. Like I said, in the hand, it feels really, really nice. Makes the gun move nice and quickly. Obviously, you've got really big hands. You might find it a little bit too slim. So the option there will be, of course, to swap it for a beaver tail. So I mentioned the trigger. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the trigger out to show you. We're actually going to take the stock off because it's not something we tend to do normally. And you can have a look at all the internal workings and I can show you how the trigger comes in and out and also talk about the actual parts that are inside the trigger. So we pop the stop bolt key right up the back. The previous owners very cleverly had a hole put in his kick ease pad to enable us to do this without removing the recoil pad. Give it a twist. Again, we've touched on this in many videos. This is basically how most over and under shotguns are held together, if you like, with a stock bolt running out the back of the action and through the stock. Whip it off. So you can see there we've got a set of V-springs, and what that will enable the shooter to experience is a better quality trigger pull. Again, if you speak to people that are fans of these guns, big Kemen fans, they will actually say they very, very, very rarely experience a trigger spring break-in, a mainspring break-in, and that obviously ties in with the whole strength that Kemen are trying to emulate with these shotguns. Right, let's pop it out. So in the case you've got a little tool for this, looks like a bent double Lego man arm. I'm just going to use my fingers. So all you do is where the trigger seats into the action, there's a little bar, so you push it across and it literally pops out like that. So if we look there, we have got the number of the gun, which is always handy to check, because people who have got guns like this with detachable triggers, you know, they tend to change them around. I think we looked at it in a previous video, maybe a Gamba video, and sometimes the original triggers don't always go with the original action. So we've got hammers, sears, etc. You can see a lot of work gone in there, very, very intricate, not just like something like a Gamba, which you've looked at before. So this little plunger here, all it does is it fits inside the bottom of the action, like so. Slip it in the front there, push it down, and it'll just lock in place like that. So before we move on to the box, I mentioned earlier in the film about there's been kind of a rejuvenation of Kemen here in the UK. They've been absent for quite a few years over here. Now a gentleman called Jonathan McGee has taken on the Kemen UK brand, and now they are being imported again. And not only are they producing things like this KM4 in all types of variants, different calibers, different barrel lengths, different types of gun, they've also got titanium action ones. I mean, there's an awful lot that people probably don't know about Kemen that would be massively surprising to most shooters, because they are master gun makers, like I say, from Spain, and they are on the rise, I would say, definitely, in terms of making headway, certainly here in the UK again, with some fantastic, fantastic guns. So if you do want to know more about Kemen, just have a Google and a lot will come up. So moving on to the box, obviously let's not forget this gun is 25-ish years old. So back then we all wanted interiors of our gun cases that look like Austin Montegos. We've got some original tan barrel and stock socks with Kemen on. We have got a selection of Briley chokes, like I mentioned. So the main difference between these and Teagues, of course, Teagues work with a taper key system. They work on friction, whereas these, you've got the original little holes in the top for the choke key to sit into, like that. So we've got a selection of flush and extended chokes. We've got the stock bolt tool. And just to finish off, we have got a nice little set of spares. Now, again, all original. So when you bought a Kemen, I'm guessing it's the same if you get a hold of one today, we have spare firing pins and springs. We've got the little tool I mentioned, which looked like a set of bunny ears or two Lego man arms for removing the trigger grip, for pushing the bar across. And we've also got a set of springs, which I understand this gun is still on its original set of springs. To summarise, not a gun we've looked at on the channel before, but a really, really nicely put together gun. Feels excellent. You can understand why they had such a following back in the late 1990s here in the UK, and you can certainly understand why they're coming back and making a big hit again once more. If you've got any question about this particular gun, please do contact me directly. Details are on the screen. Don't forget to check out the website. If you haven't already liked and subscribed to the channel, please do that. We massively appreciate your support. We've got to 5,000, but with your help, we can keep going. And from me and the very first Kemen, but not the last on the channel, I'll see you again soon.